We all come from different walks of life, and we face many challenges in life. Whatever you may be going through right now, or whatever you have gone through, I need you to know that you are not alone. I'm Mildred Towns. Let's be real about real life issues. Hello and welcome to Let's Be Real About It, where we're real about real life issues. I'm your host, Mildred Towns. Our disclaimer is that this is a no holds barred zone. Therefore, some of the contents of the show may be offensive to some, but that is not the intent of the show. Guys, I have an outstanding guest tonight that I am so excited to introduce to you. Her name is Deborah Harris. Hey, Miss Deborah, welcome to Let's Be Real About It.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Miss Towns.
We're so glad you're here. Yes, so glad that you're here. The title tonight is Living with a Mental Illness. And my guest is the author of a book called Listen. Miss Deborah, I'm going to get you to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Deborah Harris, and I'm the founder and president, CEO, and visionary of Your Wellness Inc. Your Wellness Inc. is a faith-based nonprofit 501c3 suicide and opioid death prevention organization. I'm also the founder and executive director of Just Peers LLC. Just Peers LLC is a peer drop-in / training center where we train peer recovery specialists such as myself. And we help them to get their volunteer hours, and we collaborate with other agencies and partner them and place them in the right behavioral health facilities so that they can help other people in the community. I'm also a wife. I'm a mother of 3 adult sons, whom I'm very proud of. I am the grandmother of a total of 22 grands, 11 on my husband's side, 11 on my side. Together we have 22 wonderful grands that we love dearly. I'm a retired cosmetologist and cosmetology instructor of 35 years. I've taught at several beauty schools here in the Virginia Hampton Roads area, but I originally did hair practically all over Jackson, Mississippi, Clinton, Mississippi, and the surrounding areas. And many people know me by Miss Deb. Miss Townsend invited me to come on to her show today to talk about mental illness and to share a little bit about my story and my reason for starting YWI, my reason for writing the book. And that's what I'm going to try to do today to the best of my ability with God's help. Believe it or not, I'm actually just walking through my door, just getting off work. It has been a long, hectic day, but by the grace of God, I'm here, you're here, and we're going to see how we can talk about saving lives and preventing people from going through some of the things that I experienced in life. I'm also a registered certified peer recovery specialist. And for those of you that don't know, a peer recovery specialist is someone with lived experience in either mental health or substance abuse disorder. And I happen to have experience in both areas. Is what they call dual diagnosis or co-occurring. And that is me in a small nutshell, you guys.
You're a busy woman. A busy woman. But to God be the glory. So what inspired you to write the book Listen? I know you said a little bit of it. So what inspired you to really write this book, Listen?
Okay. I experienced a nervous breakdown, crisis. Some call it a crisis. I call it a breakdown. I'm old school. And in 2014, and after going through the system and traveling down the road to recovery and back to sanity, I decided to, write about what my experience was after the breakdown when you're when you're going through treatment and therapy, they give you all sorts of treatment plans, of course. And including in my treatment plan was to journal every day, to write. I had to actually document my life for about 5 years. I had to write down what time I woke up, what time I went to bed, what I ate, what time I ate, what time I went to sleep, how many hours did I sleep, and just basically every morning I had to wake up and write down what I was feeling and identify with why I was feeling these things. So I'm like, okay, I'm writing. It's like I'm writing a book. So while writing in my gratitude journal and in my daily sleep diary, day and night diary, I decided, okay, I need to be writing my story. I've always liked to write things out of me. I've always loved to read, and a friend of mine inspired me back in 1985 to start writing my feelings out. And he said to me, he said, Deb, just like you like to read things into you, you can also write things out of you. And I started writing way back then. And I've been writing like poems and just different, mainly poems. I've started several books, but Listen was the first one that I ever went ahead and put in the work and the finances to get it published. And that was because it wasn't about me anymore at that point. It was about helping other people like me to find their pathways back to recovery. And also, not only helping people who live with a diagnosis like myself, but helping the people that care for them, that helping the people who are affected, the caregivers. I'm a caregiver as well. And I've been a caregiver all my life. And caregivers need love too. And so that is
Amen.
why I titled the book how to Help Your Loved One to how to help your loved one to deal with their mental illness, because oftentimes caregivers they just don't understand. Caregivers have lives too. They have lives outside of our lives. And caregivers oftentimes are people who are burnt out. Caregivers are people oftentimes who are actually functioning on a reserve tank, what I call it. Caregivers are loving people, caring people, people who give of themselves daily and oftentimes at their own expense. And I can relate to that with all of the caregivers that was around me, all of the caregivers that was in my life during the time that from day one, from going to the emergency room, caregivers caring for me, going to the crisis center, people caring for me, coming home, my husband and my family caring for me, my best friend. We've been friends over 20 years now, ever since I've been in Virginia. And she worked long hours at the post office, and she would actually come over here to my house, still in her uniform. And she had a little bag, her overnight bag. She would just jump in the shower, take her shower, maybe grab a bite to eat. And she cared for me day after day, night after night, month after month. My husband was away out on not deployment, but he worked for the shipyards. He was out on TDY. And so she just came over, and she just actually not only prayed me back to life, but she saw that I had turned into to that girl that she didn't know. First, I have to tell you that I was a vibrant person all my life. I've always been a person with a lot of energy. I just love doing things, love doing for people, love writing. I'm an artist. God gifted my hands from birth. I'm a retired seamstress as well. I just sew every now and then. I'm very creative. I do arts and crafts. I make jewelry. I used to make suits and stuff for people, 3-piece, double-breasted suits, all of that. I just love creating things. I love making people beautiful. I think that's why I stayed in hair, in the hair industry so long, because I just love creating beauty and bringing out beauty.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now,
Were you saying something, Miss Towns?
I was. Now, you grew up, you talked about in your book that you grew up, very angry because you're a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And while growing up, you always felt less than, ashamed, bitter, angry, and disappointed with living. You grew up in a house that was full of deception and dysfunction. And and you talked about those feelings of grief and shame that you were feeling, left untreated. And I thought this was very interesting because, when it's left untreated, it brought you into the current diagnosis that you are living with. And that's the bipolar, manic depression, and the PTSD. And as a result of this, there was attempted suicide many times. So, I want you to talk about that. Talk about that, if you don't mind. Talk about that because I thought that was very interesting. That if
Okay.
we allow things to go untreated in our life, that it can lead to other things. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
basically, I'm trying not to reflect right now at this point too far back. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, yes, I grew up an angry child because my childhood was taken from me. I grew up angry because I experienced and I witnessed a lot of abuse in the home that I grew up in. I grew up angry because I was separated from my siblings who I loved dearly. I grew up angry because of the sexual abuse, the verbal abuse that my mother endured. And our family, it's as if they all were angry. And our family wore a mask, you know, to a lot of things go on in households that,
Mhm.
especially in our culture, I would say, where
Yes.
you it's just hush hush. What goes
Hmm.
on in this house, stay in this
Stays
house.
in this
Nobody
house.
business what's going on in this house. And back then, I in my era where I grew up in, a child stayed in a child's place.
Hmm.
And back then, the parents put the fear of God in you, whether through a whipping, through a punishment, or whatever. The fear of God was there. Back then, we honored our parents. We obeyed our parents. We listened to our parents. Our parents didn't have to tell us more than once. Oftentimes, they didn't have to talk at all. They could just look at us, But because we knew that if we didn't obey our parents, there was consequence
Hmm.
behind that. And as being a young girl, I did not know that one of my parents was an abuser. I didn't come to find that out until I was around 10 years old. And by the time I made 10 years old, I was already in love with my abuser as a daughter, father,
Hmm.
love, that type of love, because my abuser was my stepfather. And my stepfather always spoiled me. I was the only girl. I have 4 brothers. I was the only girl. And he was the person that I thought that I could get away with everything. If mom said no, he would always say yes. And being a young girl, I didn't see any warning signs. I didn't know it was any warning signs to look for at that time, Mildred. You know what I mean?
I understand.
And I mean, being that young, I could not see the traps that were being set for me. I could not see, I didn't know how to recognize lies or anything like that. But after I got older and got in therapy and reflected back on incidents and things that were actually occurring in my childhood, I can now identify with other children now today. And I grew up angry. I just grew up angry because I got pregnant at no will of my own. I got pregnant as a result of being raped by my abuser. And I could not go to my high school prom. I was angry about that. I could not date the boy that I had a crush on. I was angry about that. I couldn't go out and just have a normal life like other children did. And I became a caregiver at a young age because I started caring for my mother, caring for her around I say around the age of 8 or 9. I've always felt like I needed to protect my mother. I believe I was born with a feisty spirit. I believe I was born with a fighting spirit. I believe I was born with a I'm just not going to take a type of spirit. And I have been fighting all my life, even my abuser. I was fighting. I was doing what I felt my mother should have been doing. I felt like she should have been fighting back. He was not beating me. He never beat me. He never abused me. Um, Physically, he abused me sexually. So I guess in a sense that was physically. He abused me mentally, but he abused my mother verbally, violently, and almost to the point of killing her several times. And that is where a lot of my anger came from, Mildred, because I loved my mom.
Yes.
My mother and I, we had sort of a love-hate relationship going on for years because I loved her because she's my mother and she was a sweetheart. And I hated her at the same time because she let him abuse me
Yeah.
and she didn't fight back. And I blamed her for many years. In the part you asked about the anger, how did it follow me into my adulthood? It followed me into my adulthood. I was scarred as a child because the person that I trusted as my father, and my mother allowed the abuse, and my father, he was the abuser. And so I grew up angry, and the anger got worse and worse because the people who I ran to for help, such as the police and the school teachers, no one helped me.
Hmm.
No one helped me because when I was growing up, they believed in the family first. And even teachers back then, unless they could see physical abuse on a child, and my scars were internal.
Yeah.
Nobody could see that I was being raped unless, of course, they took me to the doctor and did an examination. That never happened. And like I said, my father never physically punched me, hit me, beat me or anything. So I didn't have any physical scars. And he was a prominent person in our community. He was on the chief of police department. And that is why every time I would run down to the police department, I would just end up sitting in the lobby or whatever, or sitting out front. Oftentimes I didn't even make it inside the building. I would just be sitting out front like a little lost girl. And finally, my mother would come down there and get me, or my stepfather would come and get me, or one of the officers would just drop me back at home. Everybody knew where I lived, and I was just angry. I was angry with mom, angry with dad, angry with God. And that is when it's just, I don't know. I started developing destructive thoughts. I started feeling useless. I started feeling alone. I started feeling betrayed. And my abuser, he was the reason that I believe I developed a drug problem later on in life because he fed me drugs. He fed me alcohol. He fed me marijuana. He introduced me to those things at the age of 12. And it was all to, I guess, in his mind, he was medicating the feelings that I had, or I don't know. I don't know why he did this. This is just my assumption. He was an evil man. When it's all said and done, he was an evil man because only an evil person will abuse a child. And only an evil person will abuse their mother, will beat their mom in their presence. And only an evil person will separate siblings because my brothers, like I said, I'm the only girl, and my brothers, they were getting older. When my brothers and I was split up, my older brother was 10 years old. The next brother was 9. My other brother was 8. I was 7 years old, and our younger brother was 5 years old when we all were split up. And we were split up because the 10-year-old, my older brother, he could no longer witness the abuse that our mother was enduring. And he got a gun at the age of 10 years old, and he shot our stepfather in the foot, trying to protect our mom. And at that point, we all stayed up late. That night, we could hear the arguing in the next room. We could hear the fussing. We could hear the beating. We could hear him slapping. We could hear the punching. We could hear her begging and screaming and saying, "Don't take my children. I want to keep my children. I'm sorry." But after all was said and done, I watched my brothers leave. Within a few days, my brothers was gone, and I was 16 years old before I saw him again.
Mm.
And so I was left there alone with the abuser. My mom was left there with no male protection. He knew what he was doing. He knew that those boys were getting older and that we all were getting older, and had the abuse continued, one of them probably would have killed them. And this is all in my mind. This is Deb's assumption of only God knows what may or may not have happened. But this is my story, and that's the way it happened.
And because I told you, that in our stories was similar. I never was sexual abused by my dad, but my dad was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic, and he would abuse our mom. And
Mm-hmm.
and I was telling DJ Ron that I wish that your book would have been available uh, when we was going through with my dad, because we never understood or even knew that there was support or either a group that we could have went to get support. So as you did, we grew up, with ill will feelings, bad blood, ill will, against our dad, as well. My brother, my oldest brother, he left for the Air Force. We didn't see him for a long time. My other brother, he attempted to kill my dad. My mama stopped him. You can hear his story on this YouTube channel as well. Uh, but so similar. And if we would have had the book, then it would have kind of guided us, or somebody been there to kind of help us, like you telling your story to help us. So I think your book is dynamic. Um, and to
Thank
get
you.
you, because I don't want you crying and feeling bad, and then when the show is over, then you're trying to deal with, the aftermath. So talk about from your book um, how words for a person who's been diagnosed with a mental illness, how words matters to that person.
Yes. So words matter. Words matter more than we know. Words matter even if you're not living with a diagnosis.
Hmm.
Words hurt. Words hurt deep. Words sometimes, from my own experience, hurt worse than an actual punch, an actual stab, because stabs and punches and hits, they heal eventually. But those words, it's like they take root in the heart. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And growing up, I I was often called, you're bipolar. You're Jekyll and you're Hyde. You're hot today, cold tomorrow, up today, down tomorrow. And I'm very spontaneous. I'm a very spontaneous person. I had to learn how to actually finish things, actually finish assignments, and sometimes that gets hard. I'm a multitasker. Even today, it's like I was always doing a lot of things. I mentioned about my different trades early on when we first started this webinar. And even in my homes, I would have one room was my sewing room. One room was my hair room. One room was my art room where I do my wall decor and all of that. Another room, I just always was doing a lot because it kept me out of my thoughts. It kept me out of my head.
Hmm.
And so people would say hurtful things, even in school. I always had a speech impairment. It was a time, Mildred, when I couldn't have this interview with you because I used to have to go to a speech therapist. And even today, now my grammar skills are not all that. And I still stutter when I get real nervous, but I used to have a really severe stuttering problem to the point of like the man on Harlem Nights. I was just as bad as he was. I would stutter and I couldn't talk on the phone. And that was another thing that made me angry, not just the abuse. I was angry because I couldn't talk. I was angry because people teased me because I stuttered. I was angry because the kids at school bullied me. I was angry because the girls didn't like me. I was angry because I didn't have any friends. I was angry when people called me Jekyll and Hyde and all of those hurtful names and stupid and um and just all of those names. And then after I got pregnant, after my stepfather got me pregnant and I had to get out of my school, out of the normal school, and they sent me to an all girls school with nothing but pregnant girls there. I mean the anger just really sat in and the shame sat in because the kids that was at the regular school, they started calling me um bad names. I was a bad girl. I got pregnant. I'm in the 10th grade, so I got to be fooling with boys. So I became somebody that I wasn't in their eyesight. And I couldn't tell anybody, no, no, I'm not that girl. No, I haven't slept with any boys. No, I couldn't tell anybody, no, I was raped. No, I didn't do this. No, this happened to me. I didn't, and so and the good girls in school, they pretty much bullied me, belittled me, talked about me, badmouthed me. And all of this I had to endure because of what this man did to me. And I grew up angry because when I did meet the boy of my dreams that I I really liked,
Hmm.
I came with a package. I came with a package. And one of my friends, he chose her over me because I said it was because I came with a package. I said it because I felt, because, if I wouldn't have had a baby, if I was, say, pure like she was, or I always compared myself with, with other girls that didn't have the package, that wasn't abused, that, you know, I just had a lot of low self-esteem. I always had a lot of low self-esteem. I still deal with that today.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I have not arrived in that area. I have not arrived. I'm a work in process in that area. I don't think that I'm all that in a bag of chips.
I
You know,
understand.
even when people tell me, you're a beautiful lady, I don't see it. I have more confidence today than I've ever had in my life, but I still have not arrived because the scars are still there. I've learned how to deal with the scars. I've learned how to, and when I say scars, I mean the mental scars.
Mm-hmm.
The mental scars. I lived all my life trying to teach school, trying to do the things that I was doing, trying to raise my kids, trying to be a good wife, trying to be a good daughter, trying to be a good sister. I was the one that pretty much took care of my brothers. Even though I was the knee baby, it's like it's like the weight of the world fell on me. I was the one taking care of my brothers, taking care of my kids, taking care of some of my little cousins and stuff. They would move in. I was always the one, the caregiver, and even with my boys, I was always the person where all of the neighborhood kids hung out at my house because they know Miss Deb gonna cook. She gonna feed us. And I was just always that caregiver, but inside I was dying inside, and I didn't know it. I didn't know it because I was medicating the hurt, the childhood hurt with wine, with marijuana. I smoked marijuana practically all my life, Mildred, because I was introduced to it at a young age, and I grew up in a family where that's what we did. I had an auntie that growed it. I had an aunt, a aunt that practiced the Rastafarian culture, the Rasta culture, and she was like, herbs is good for your body. We didn't take medication. We smoked the joint. Oh, whatever. So I never saw marijuana as a problem. Not trying to tell anybody on here that may be listening that it's okay to do marijuana, because I've since learned in my field that marijuana fries your brain cells just like crack cocaine does.
Amen.
Marijuana damages your brain cells. Marijuana could be the cause of those lung nodules that I had once before God took them away. So I'm not encouraging anyone, to each his own. I'm not telling anyone that it's safe to smoke marijuana, because in all reality, it's not. Marijuana is a drug, and you don't know what they put in it these days. I heard,
Amen.
I heard someone say it was putting embalming fluid in it these days. I don't know,
Amen.
but since the Lord saved me, I know that this is the temple of God, that He dwell in me. I'm a believer, and for anyone that's not a believer out there, oh well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for you. I'm honest about that, because ever since the Lord saved me, I can't undo the things that I did to my life, that I did in my body. But I know that my temple, this is God's temple, and He cannot dwell in the unclean temple. I do know if I was to go back to smoking marijuana and drinking and doing all of those things again, I would be defiling His temple. That's just what Deborah believed. And I just had to throw that out there for some reason. Don't know where it came from, but I had to throw it out there, so somebody may need it to hear that.
And Deborah, you talked about in your book, there was a time that you went through crisis. Uh, so how define what crisis may be like, and how to help someone in crisis. And then I want you to talk about resilience.
Okay, so for me, it didn't start, I didn't just go into the crisis overnight. It was a gradual thing. And just like I didn't recognize when I was a little girl, I didn't know the traps that my stepfather was setting for me. I didn't my mind couldn't fathom thinking the awful thoughts. And so I didn't pay attention to what was happening to me after my biological father passed away, after two of my brothers passed away. I didn't see that how do I want to put this? The decline, the mental decline have always been there. I've always had a mental illness. I just never received the diagnosis until in my 50s. When I was a teenager, I was diagnosed with what they call melancholic. That's a temperament. I was diagnosed with that by a doctor, but that, like I said, that was in my teenage years, and then I was diagnosed melancholic again in my early adulthood, and they just put me on a medication called Prozac. It didn't do anything for me, and I just never did take the medication because I grew up in a culture where you don't take the medication. My mom used to use like vegetables, and she would take meat and slap on us to heal things, and she would put onions in our socks and stuff, and garlic in our socks, and then my aunts and stuff, we would smoke the marijuana or things like that, or maybe castor oil or whatever. But other than that, we didn't take medications, so I didn't believe in taking medications. And maybe if I would have taken the medication back then, it's a possibility that I would not have gone in crisis, but I don't know. But I went on through life, just living life, and smoking weed, and drinking my wine, and just internalizing, just staying busy. For me, staying busy helped me to not think, because when I get too quiet, when I get too still, when I don't have anything to do, I reflect. My mind goes back to years ago, to the hurt. It goes back there. And I hear people say that if you still cry about it, then you haven't healed. If you still cry about it, you need more treatment. If you can't talk about it, then you can't heal from it. But I beg to differ that, because some hurts, I believe, speaking for myself, and I love God, and I know He can do anything. He can heal all hurts, but some hurts, if we can't get past it, God is not going to come down from heaven and just take it from me. I still have this mind that He blessed me with. I still reflect from time to time. And everybody have coping skills that work for them. I teach my clients the coping skills that I've used. I talk to my clients about developing their own coping skills. Even our organization, we take a strength-based approach. And what a strength-based approach is, we help to bring out the strong points, in our clients. Mm-hmm. Even when I do my assessments, I focus more on their strengths, on the good qualities. I focus more on their good strengths than I do their past. I leave the past to the therapist. I'm not a therapist. So, they're getting drilled enough each time they go into therapy, each time they go into see their psychiatrist. Each time they go to see their therapist, because psychiatrists pretty much just prescribe medicine. But each time they go to see their psychiatrist, and some people on this call is going to beg to differ that. They're going to be like, no, psychiatrists do more than prescribe medicine. I'm basing this on my experience. This is Deb's story for me. And that's all they did for me, was prescribe medicine. But my therapist did a lot more. They took the time out. They gave me the time. They listened. They listened. They repeated back to me what I said to let me know that they were listening. Something that I showed them that was really, 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 really hurting me, that could possibly cause me to go back to drinking and drugging and even want to end my life. These are the things that they pretty much focus on. And on the other hand, me as a peer recovery specialist, I focus on the individual strengths of the person.
And that's how you help them to build resilience. Is that how
Yeah,
you help them bounce
yes,
back,
yes,
from the difficult times that they may be experiencing right now?
yes, yes. I mean, you tapped on it. You hit the nail with the hammer, definitely, because once a person develops their strength, because when you're at a point where I was, when I experienced my crisis, I was at a point of no return. I was at a point of, okay, I just, you know, I take it back. When I went into crisis, not when I went into crisis, when I tried to kill myself all those times, it was because I no longer wanted to live. I didn't feel like I had anything worth living for. I didn't feel like I had anything to give anybody. I didn't feel like I had anything to give to the world. I didn't see any strengths. I didn't. Only thing I could see was the abuse, the hurt, and even though I was abused coming up, the thing that hurt me was the most in my life, Mildred, was the hurt that I caused my own children
Hmm.
when I got addicted to those drugs. When I got on that crack. When I didn't get the help that I needed for me, it affected my children.
Yes.
And it's happening today
Hmm.
when the mothers and the fathers don't get the help that they need, those children are going to be affected because first of all, they can't take care of themselves. They need us. And if we don't have it all together, we can't help them. And that also goes to say that if if we don't do it for ourselves, we still can't help our children. Oftentimes I went in treatment for my children, to not lose my children, or because my children got tired of me getting high, and so I would go in because I didn't want to lose my children. But I would end up getting high all over again. I went in because I didn't want to lose a relationship. I went in because I was court ordered several times to go to treatment. And oftentimes people go in treatment for all the wrong reasons. A lot of times people go in treatment because they're really not ready to stop using. And sometimes people go in treatment that are really ready to stop using. But if they don't have a support system, it's going to be hard. Sometimes you have to just make a total change, but they tell me happiness comes from within, and I was not happy. I was just not a happy camper. I was so angry, so angry. I was court ordered while working in the school system, in a good marriage with a good man. I was angry, living in a beautiful home, driving a nice um ride, a nice car, having all the things that the average woman would appreciate. I was miserable. I was unhappy. And I didn't know that it all was because I hadn't dealt with the hurt.
Yep.
I hadn't. I just internalized it. I covered it up. It was still there. I was still having nightmares.
So
I was still having bad.
how long you been, free from the drugs? How long have you been free from the crack, the
I've
marijuana?
been off crack for 22 years now.
Praise God.
I've been off crack for 22 years. I've been off the marijuana since my since 2013.
Okay.
Since 2013, I've been off marijuana, and I relapsed once. I relapsed once on marijuana. That didn't last long. And how that relapse occurred was I relapsed through vaping pain medications or whatever, that stuff that they sell today that's supposed to not have no THC up in it. That caused me to relapse and go back to smoking. Because they tell you in AA, it may not happen that way for everybody, but for me, vaping, that whatever that was, it then that just took me back. It was just too much like smoking weed.
Mm-hmm.
It was too much. It was not good for me. It was too. It wasn't helping my pain. I live with arthritis. I live with arthritis throughout my body, and that's why sometimes you may have seen some of my videos where I was at an event and I may have to be helped up the stairs, or I may be using a cane or whatever. That's because of the arthritis. And anybody that lives with RA know you could be up today, down tomorrow. When the weather change, my bones ache. But I needed something to ease the pain, and I started when they put all these smoke shacks around. I went in there and I actually asked a family member. I actually asked my son and my husband. I said, "Can y'all bring me some? Get me some of that out of there?" They said that stuff will help me to with this arthritis. And my husband like, "No, you don't need that." My son was like, "No," but they got it anyway. It didn't last long. It was nasty, but just the some things are habit forming. Just to bringing it up to my mouth, I wanted the weed. So I relapsed on marijuana once. That didn't last long, thank God. I relapsed on crack cocaine once. Um, 23 years. It was 21 years ago. So this November will be 22 years that I've been clean off cocaine. And I don't drink. I quit smoking cigarettes 10 years ago, right at 10 years ago. And so there's other issues, that I'm dealing with and praying that God would deliver me from. I still have an eating disorder. It's other things. My weight fluctuates. I still like my happy food. You know, um, Everybody has a drug. Just about. I can't say everybody because I don't know for true. I would say most people do have a drug, and right now my drug is food.
I understand. And let me ask you this. What are the pathways to recovery? And then I want you to talk about along with that, with the time that we little time we have left, talk about the different types of mental illness, the pathway to recovery, and the different types of mental illness. And then we're going to talk about again what it is that you do now.
Oh wow, Mildred. I've been told most people when you say mental illness, they usually identify with bipolar, schizophrenic, manic depressive, and stuff like that. And most of those things are under the same umbrella. But I discovered through NAMI, because I was a NAMI facilitator for a few years, and I discovered through the national lines on mental illness that there's over, I believe it's over 200 different types of mental illnesses. So that's something I really can't name all of them. I may have a few in my book. I can't remember. I think I may have listed a few that I know of in
Listed a
my
few
book.
in your book.
I do know that there's several different forms of bipolar. I've been diagnosed with bipolar II. Since I'm not a clinician, since I'm not a therapist, we're non-clinical. I really don't know a lot of the different types of mental illness. I do know that there's over 200 of them. And I don't even know the different types of bipolar. I do know that there's several of them. I know that I'm diagnosed with bipolar 2, and I do know that bipolar 2 is a person that experiences mania as well as depression. I know that both of them are dangerous for me. That it's dangerous for me to hold on to depression over 3 days. It's dangerous for me to be in a manic state over, I believe it's over a week. And I've learned how to identify with what's going on with me. You got to pay attention to your body. Me as living with bipolar, I do know that bipolar is brought. My type of bipolar is brought about by a brain. It's caused by a brain injury, and I do know that for my type. And I do know that schizophrenia, which is something one of my brothers has been living with most of his life, is a brain disease. And that is something and that's because I chose to research that. And I don't know everything about that. So that's something I don't want to give any misinformation out here, because I'm really not a therapist or a psychiatrist. And I only took like 5 psychology courses at Regent. And so I can't really accurately answer all of the different mental. That's a question for a professional, not me.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was the other question?
Pathway to recovery.
So I can share with you the pathway that I took to
Okay.
recovery. And because the pathway that I took may not work for the next person. But the pathway that I took to recovery was first admitting that I had a mental illness. I used to get mad when people, family members, and other people would call me Jekyll and Hyde, and they saw the problem. Our family, the people around us, they see something in us that we're usually the last one to see. Even when I was in my addiction, I didn't see that I had went from 140 pounds down to like 90 pounds or whatever. I couldn't see that. I was looking in the mirror, still thought I was cute. you know I couldn't see that my skin texture was changing, and my eyes were bucking, and my hair was falling out, and I had stopped dressing. I couldn't see those things, but the people that knew me, they could see that. And oftentimes the person who has the problem, they're the last to see it. And
Mhm.
then even after you see it, it's oftentimes it's not easy. For me, it wasn't easy to admit that me, the smart, intelligent, educated, strong woman, artistic lady, had a problem with crack. It was
Yeah.
hard for me to admit that. It was hard for me to admit that, hey, you neglected your kids. It was hard for me to admit that I needed help. I didn't want nobody to help me. I didn't want nobody to. I dodged treatment that I knew I needed for a long time, because I didn't want to tell anybody what happened to me. And to be honest with you, Mildred, had I not experienced that nervous breakdown in 2014, a lot of things I probably would have taken to my grave with me.
Hmm.
It's a lot of things I have been transparent about, on the air, on Praise Radio. I've been transparent on Big Mind. I've been transparent with Dr. Serena. I'm now transparent with you, transparent in rooms for the Urban League, where I've had to share my story for the Urban League and other entities. And some things have came out in my story that even my family didn't know. And I was talking with one of my church sisters last night, and I asked her, I'm just going to be honest. We were talking yesterday, and before we were on the phone forever, and I'm not a phone person. We was on the phone for forever. I called to check on her because she's going through some things. And I called to check on her and see what I could do to help her. And before that call ended, I asked her, and I know it was the Spirit of God, because she's a woman of God. I say, will you do me a favor? She says, anything. I say, I'm supposed to share my story on tomorrow. I said, but I'm nervous. I'm still dealing with some shame from the last story, from the last time. I said it hadn't been 2 weeks that I just shared my story. I don't believe. I said, and I'm dealing with some things right now. I said, will you please pray for me? I said, because I don't want to call her and tell her I don't want to do it. And I said, pray for me. I said, because every time I tell my story, I go back and I play that video over and over and over again, and I cry and I beat myself up, and I'm like, Deb, you shouldn't have said that. I'll be like, Deb, you fumbled, you rambled, you didn't sound right, and I criticize myself so bad, and just the fact of opening up, and it hurts me so bad. And she said to me, she said, sis. First, she started praying. She prayed. And when I tell you, and this is my testimony right now, I shared it with my son last night. When she began to pray, I had the phone up with this hand. And when I tell you, Mildred, this hand, it's like I don't know what was going on, but I lost control of my reflexes throughout the whole prayer. And she prayed, 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 prayed. And that was an effective prayer. I know it was because I'm here.
So we got like 5 minutes left.
But just to finish up my pathway to recovery, the main thing for my pathway that brought me was being honest with Deborah. That I cannot do this alone. Being honest and admitting that I had a problem. Being honest and admitting that I may have to take medication. Being honest and admitting that I may need to see a therapist. I know even now that after being out of therapy for about 3 years now, I may have to go back in therapy because life is still happening.
Mm-hmm.
And just being able to recognize when I too don't have it all together. And
Amen.
in the pathway that I can share with anybody that may be listening, pay attention to your body. Pay attention to your thoughts. Pay attention to the people around you, caregivers. Pay attention to the people you're caring for. For instance, if you have someone that's always vibrant and lively and upbeat and, have a lot of energy, and all of a sudden you notice that the energy is not there, that vibrancy is not there, the things that they used to take an interest in doing, they no longer want to do them. It's just so many warning signs that are in my book. The book lists several things to look for. But pay attention to your strengths. For the people that are living with a diagnosis like myself, and for the people who are caregivers, the things that make you happy, the things that make the person, your loved one, happy, those are the things that you do more of. Find ways to bring happiness, find ways to bring joy. Connect with other people, connect with organizations, do the research, find out who you can call in the middle of the night if you're feeling depressed and everybody around you is asleep. Um, if you don't feel like talking to God, it's been sometimes, I'm gonna be honest, I love God, I'm a believer, I'm a saved woman, but it's been times I didn't feel like talking to God. It's been times that I've just turned on some music and listened to some music. There's been times I went sat out on the porch or whatever. It's been times I just took a walk, not at night by myself or anything, but it's just so many things. I would say read not only my book, but read other inspirational books.
Yeah, and I think that your book is very interesting. So tell people how they can get your book.
Well, actually, we're on Barnes and Noble. We're on iTunes. You can get the electronic. The book itself is $14.95, and you can order it on our website. It's on our website. I believe it's on the screen. Yes, it's on our website. You can also call me directly and give me your address or whatever, and for an extra $4. So say $20 will get you the book if I have to mail it to you. And also, I actually give away more books then I sell. So if it's somebody, the book is designed to help people. And a lot of people can say, oh, she shouldn't say that. But if somebody really wants the book and cannot afford that book, give me a call. If somebody feel like they don't need the book, but know someone who can benefit from it, purchase it for them. You know, it's an amazing book.
It is
Life-changing book, life-changing book. It really is. And I also I have my forgiveness story in Surviving Her. I'm not the visionary of that book. Kathy Harris is. And if you're interested in that book, I also have that book. And I'm in the process now of writing these things that I can't talk about, these things that I fumble every time I try to speak. I'm not a motivational speaker, I'm not an inspirational speaker, but I am a writer. I am an author. I can write it out, and I'm working on my book now. It's called "The Girl in the Mirror Is Me."
Oh, wow.
And this is me. This is everything. This is everything from behind closed doors. This is everything. You know, what happened, how it was, and how it is today. It's going to be in this book, The Girl in the Mirror Is Me.
We're going to be looking for that book to come out. But Deborah, thank you so much. So you're going to have to let us know when that book is out. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Huh? Oh, I thought you said something. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for being on the show. Tell people how they can contact you. Your website was up. Your email is up, and your phone number was up. Is that how they can contact you? Which is the best?
That is how you can contact.
Okay.
The best way to contact me, what I would say, would be to call me on the phone, because I always have my phone on me. My husband say that I sleep with it under the pillow. I may not always answer the phone, but you can certainly leave a message, and I promise to get back with you as soon as possible. You can email me. I have several emails, but that's the one I check the most. And but just feel free to call me or inbox me. And if you want to support us, please go to our website. We can use your support to help others, you know. And if you want to support, I also have a Cash App that I didn't give Mildred to put up there. But you can Cash App me at Deb Harris 62.
Amen. Amen. But thank you so much for being on the show tonight. And if Let's Be Real has been a blessing to you, please consider sending a love offering to $Mildred Towns. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Let's Be Real with Mildred Towns. And we have prayer every morning at 7:30. You can dial into 605-313-5885, and the code is 88187. You can contact me at iHeartMinistries@gmail.com or 757-776-2987. I want to give special thanks to all our viewers nationally and internationally who watch the show. And until next week, may God bless you and keep you. I'm Mildred Towns. Thank you for watching.
What up, y'all? It's your boy Deborah on stage. We here at J&K Style and Grill with my main man.
J&K Style Grill, home of the original waffle burger, stuffed wings, and Philly steak egg roll.
The food was amazing, man. I'm talking about collard green stuffed chicken, mac and cheese stuffed chicken, waffle burger with the special sauce.
With the special sauce.
Come on, man. What are you doing if you ain't eating here? You're wasting your life.
Pull up.
J&K Style Grill, you can copy the style,
but never the best.
we got it.
We got it.